Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, welcome, as we are here to discuss some pretty big news. I feel like a lot of people kind of buzzed over this one throughout the week, but we've had a lot of big horror news this week. Some cool trailers, some people shifting behind the scenes with some big properties. So, I mean, I don't necessarily blame anybody, but, for us, we had to talk about it. And, we've had ourselves a pretty busy week, but we kept saying we're going to circle around to it, and now we can, and we are here to discuss, of course, the Blob Remake, which is coming from David Bruckner from The Ritual and The Night House, and, of course, 2022's Hellraiser. So, yeah, this is pretty exciting stuff. I mean, it's not the first time, and maybe certainly not the last time that this property is going to get thrown back into the pool of remakes and requels. But the fact that we're going to get one here in our time, it's pretty exciting. And being fans of the 1988 film, especially, uh, you know, Luke, I got to know how you feeling about this.
It did catch me off guard a little bit. There's always these rumors swirling that we're going to see the Blob come back to the theaters at some point, but it never always so many roadblocks, and then it kind of just goes radio silent for a while, and then we hear someone else being attached to it. So I hadn't really thought too much of it until this popped up, and like you, it escaped me as well. I didn't catch up to this till a little bit later, but. For this, I'm really excited. I love the 88 version. I think it's really well done. Going back into that one, I think it's fine. People are finding the love for it. It still is kind of overlooked, I think, in terms of the horror spectrum. But having David Bruckner attached to this wasn't something that I was going to call, but it was something that I'm definitely excited about because I think he's going to bring something different. And I think when you look at usual suspects and then you mention David Bruckner, yes, it's not something that's going to be in the back of your mind, but when I think you sit with it, and the longer you sit with it, the happier you're going to be.
Yeah, and I'm definitely was on the fence with you, sort of in the same way. I mean, it was like David Bruckner was just a name that I didn't personally like. I don't think I would have picked that out of the hat. You know what I mean? Like that would have been something where maybe it was more like a James Gunn or a Joe Lynch. Somebody who's kind of got the comedy chops with it as well. David Bruckner just has some really dark, more serious looks at his work so far. Not to say that he probably can't do comedy, and not to say that this won't be like have any comedy in it, but just too early to tell. But I just he was an odd choice, but a choice that I'm not disappointed in. I mean, the guy's work it speaks for itself. We've really liked a lot of his projects. The Ritual was a fun one for me, where the first time I saw it, I was not a fan of it. I think just because creature feature, I have a certain expectation. But going back to it and really sitting with it and sitting with the messaging and everything in that film, I've grown to really love it. And then The Night House blew me away. And, Hellraiser was also great. I enjoyed Hellraiser quite a bit. So, yeah, I should have every, opportunity in the world here to knock this out of the park. Now, do I think that it's going to hold up as far as we get to like comparison of that to the 88 version? I think that that's going to be kind of like a thing to the thing 2011 situation for me, where it's like I appreciate the other one, I appreciate the thing a lot, or the thing 2011 a lot, but I just don't know if you'll ever be able to touch that 88 version. It's just such a pure film.
Absolutely, my objectivity is clouded in a sense. I grew up with the 88 version, so I'm always going to have that nostalgia love for it. And even going back and re-examining that film, it still completely holds up. In looking at that 88 version, Frank Darabont was, someone who wrote the screenplay, and, looking into it, and what he's gone on to do, it seems like, well, Frank Darabont really wrote that. And,
Mm-hmm.
He's got a gift just like David Bruckner does to kind of this world building, opening up these kind of issues, making these characters feel real. And I think, yes, David Bruckner at the start, the announcement, a little jarring pick for me. But then as I kind of sat with it and reminisced about The Ritual, Hellraiser, The Night House, all those films where a lot of his characters in there are dealing with some real tangible things, and they feel like real characters. And I think, creating that world in those issues and these characters that we can kind of live with for a while before we even see the Blob make an appearance, I think is going to be what people are going to be looking for in this film. I think people are going to say the story here is really strong, and then we also get the Blob itself. So I think, this is kind of having your cake and eating it too, at least as from the start here. For me, everything's looking very positive. I think David Bruckner is going to be able to create those characters and just have that world that we're going to want to live in before we even get to the actual Blob itself.
No, I get it. And speaking of the Blob itself, I mean, a lot of the talk has been, are we going to do a lot of like practical effects? Are we really going to hone into that? Are we going to go full CG? And, that's definitely going back to my Thing 2011 to the Thing comparison. It's one of those things where I'm just like, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm worried that they're gonna try to commit to practical and not have the best time with it. They're not gonna love it by the end of it, and then they're gonna just cover it in CG. I don't want that to happen. But when we were talking about this off air, you actually gave a really great take on that in the sense of just where we are today as opposed to where we were in 2011. So why don't you take the floor there, Luke, and let me know again what your thoughts, or at least tell the audience on that subject.
Yeah, I think, we're in a very different place, probably over the past, I'd probably say 6 or 8 years. If this was a director that didn't have a filmography, anything really tangible, and just kind of someone new to the game, I would be a little hesitant because, the studio is going to have the clout. They're going to say whatever is cheapest, that's what we're going to go with. But now with, David Bruckner attached, he's got some films under his belt, a lot of films that are really held in high regard. He's going to have some clout himself. And, when we look at these horror directors, there is this kind of shift where a lot of these horror directors who grew up in the 80s and seeing those practical effects are really adamant about going really practical with these creatures, the gore, all this stuff. And looking into doing a deeper dive as we were preparing for this video, I wanted to see, what the history with David Bruckner was. And, if you search David Bruckner with any of his films, The Ritual, Hellraiser, The Night House, and then you also put in practical effects, I'll spoil it for you now. There are articles out there that are, touting him and being so animate and wanting to do those practical effects and really lean on those. So, Hellraiser is a big one where he was interviewed and said, the Cenobites are completely practical. We went in afterward with CGI and augmented everything to kind of punch it up a little bit. So I think, with David Bruckner behind the lens here and having a very specific vision, I mean, he's going to be writing as well as directing. So, it's going to be that one singular vision. He's steering the ship here. I think he's going to be so adamant about, just like his other 3 films, let's do practical, and then we'll kind of come in and punch it up with that CGI. And I think that's probably the best practice here, where you go back to that 88 version. And I mean, a lot of it, for about 95-96% of that film, the Blob looks phenomenal. There are some questionable things in there, which I think, nowadays CGI can help out. Plus, hey, Tony Gardner's still in the game. And we could even bring him back to not necessarily lead the way, but also consult and be like, this is what we did back then. And we can kind of have those kind of mesh of the 88 version as well as more of a modern take, and really just, have an all out fun time with this. So for me, yes, I love that 88 version. It's an all-time classic for me. It's something I go back and rewatch all the time. But I gotta say, right now, as this announcement is and sitting with it for a few days, the Blob reimagining, remake, whatever you want to call it, is really looking positive for me.
Yeah, and I agree too. I have my little trepidation. I have my little, a little bit of concern, but it's just something that, this film, although it hasn't been around nearly as long as something like The Thing has in my life, this, has been a staple for me over the last 5 years or so. And it's been one of those things that I constantly go back and rewatch and enjoy. We just spoke about it on December to Dismember, so you guys can get our in-depth thoughts on the 88 version there. And yeah, I think that overall that's a good call. I mean, like bringing back some of the original folks who worked on that film, if you can, consulting them, asking them questions. That's always good practice. It seems in
Let's get
any
Kevin Dillon back too.
filmmaking. Oh yeah, right. Bring him
Riding
back
his
as a
motorcycle.
cameo, at least
There
a
we go.
cameo. We'll make him the homeless guy at the beginning.
There we go.
If we're going straight beat by beat remake now, but Yeah, I quite am excited about this. I think that this all looks very positive. And granted, it's just an announcement, so we're not looking at any footage. We're not really even hearing anything about the story just yet. When do we plan on seeing this? I would say we're a lot closer to a late 2025, if not 2026. But I don't know. I mean, Hellraiser was kind of a quick turnaround. I feel like, at least from when we got word of it. So I think maybe it could happen where we get it early 2025. Who knows? But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I know Luke is as well. So I just want to know: are you guys excited for the Blob remake? Do you guys have any kind of reservations? I know for a long time some people were championing for like a Rob Zombie to tackle the Blob because he loves his old black and white cinema. So he was definitely trying to go towards more of that original version.
He had some good
Um,
ideas.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like I've looked into some of that too, and he's got some positive, fun stuff. I think that that's the best thing about Rob Zombie is like he's got a lot of great ideas. It's just you got to get him in the hands of people that'll let him execute those ideas.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Other than that, guys, let us know what you guys think of the Blob remake. Again, is this something you're looking forward to? And if not, let us know why. What's your big trepidation on this? And other than that, we got a lot of great stuff on the channel. We just had a huge collaboration talking about all of our most anticipated horror movies for 2024 with the folks over at Sledge Horror Hammer. What did I say?
Sledgehammer horror.
Sledgehammer Horror. I'm keeping that in. But yeah, we spoke with Ashley and Ken over there. They're great people, and yeah, we had a lot of fun working with them, and we hope to work with them again here very soon. But yeah, no, lots of good stuff on the channel. Definitely keep it right here with us. And yeah, I guess until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.